following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcasts of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
What up, RSVPs? It is Jill Munroe. You are live here on KBLA Talk 1580, checking out RSVP with Jill Munroe. I hope you are having a great Tuesday. We have, as always, a lot to talk about. We are about to get into all the trending topics in entertainment, sports, lifestyle, and culture on this wonderful Tuesday afternoon. So it's actually evening. So I hope that you are ready. You got your snacks. You got a libation. You're ready to pop in and get into these topics. Let me get you ready for what we're going to discuss tonight, because it's a lot, as always. So we're going to get into Nene Leakes. She has some opinions. She had an interview that she did with Carlos King. He's a former producer for The Real Housewives of Atlanta, currently producing other shows on other networks like Love and Marriage Huntsville. I believe that's the name of the series. Anyway, he and Nene had a conversation, and Nene thinks that there is another reality star that was pushed ahead of her, and she really should be bigger than. We're going to talk about that. We are going to get into a deadly stabbing that occurred in New York, and the catalyst of it was someone voguing to Beyonce's Renaissance album. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get into the most recent Men's Health cover. It's honoring the 50 years of hip hop. We're going to get into who's on the cover and what they have to say about their health and fitness. I think that you will be interested in that. We're going to talk about former NBA star and podcaster Steven Jackson. He's called out the NBA for some things that Ice Cube has. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And we have a guest tonight. A former executive at Nike, Under Armour, a bunch of brands. He's worked on some incredible projects that you probably are familiar with, and is responsible for some collaborations that I know you are. We're going to get into that with our guest tonight, Drew Greer, brand arsonist. We'll talk about that in a minute. But before we get into all of that, you know I have a couple of conversation starters that we have to get started with. So if you've been checking out the news, the Gucci store, they were saying it's Beverly Hills. It's actually not. It is Century City here in the Los Angeles area, was hit up by thieves at the Century City Mall. They broke into, well, they didn't break into, they actually walked in the Gucci store, which is situated inside of Bloomingdale's, and cleaned them out and made a smooth getaway. We've been seeing more and more of these snatch and grabs. They've been gaining popularity. What can we do about it? You have to remember, too, although I think it's really easy to reach this mark in Gucci, but it's changed as far as what you can be held in jail for, what constitutes a felony as far as stealing. It's $1,000. So anything under that amount is basically a ticket. Not that any of these people got caught, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So I mentioned the Men's Health cover. The cover features Busta Rhymes, he's 51, 50 Cent, he's 48, Method Man at 52, Ludacris, who's 45, Common, who is also 51, and Wiz Khalifa, who's 35. And this issue was in honor of hip-hop's 50th anniversary. So, we've been celebrating that all year and having conversations. So their focus was on men's health. 50 Cent had a really interesting revelation in this interview. So we know that since 50 dropped, his body has been a point of emphasis. How he works out, how he keeps himself in shape. If you think about the first video for In the Club, he was running on the treadmill. They were bringing him back like Steve Austin in The $6 Million Man. Well, he says the inspiration for being in shape and wanting to keep his body together was actually D'Angelo and his video, How Does It Feel, from back in the day. He said he saw that. He saw how the women went crazy, and that is what inspired him for his lifelong fitness journey. He said people were talking about Brad Pitt and the Brad Pitt line. I guess that's that line that goes down men's stomach or whatever. They were referencing that when it came to 50, and he was like, nope, absolutely not. It was all D'Angelo, so shout out to him. Ludacris also mentioned that for him, part of the reason why he works out so hard is that, he just wants to be in shape when he gets older. He wants to make sure to take care of himself. He says that he still wants to be able to perform when he's 60 or 70 years old. He said someone looked at other artists in their 40s and 50s, and they considered it a stigma. And people would say, okay, you're too old to be doing music now. He said, but nobody's taking into account that hip-hop is just now turning 50 years old. We're still in the middle of seeing how hip-hop is growing, and to a degree, there is no more you're too old. So he wants to make sure he can put on an outstanding show for forever. And Method Man mentioned that he started working out to help with his insomnia. He said that he couldn't sleep, so he started going to the gym. And it became an obsession. He said that he had PTSD from growing up in Staten Island. And that, after reaching for the PlayStation, the books, all of those things, he just said he had a lot of energy that he needed to burn off. So he turned to the gym. And, he said he also wants to be sure to break the cycle and the pattern of obesity in the community. So shout out to those guys. We're in the golden age of hip hop. These are some legends. Wiz is the youngest of the group. Suppose his career has only been around for 10 years or so, but they're setting the stage. So I want to know, our good question for the night is, do you think that there is an age limit on hip hop? Do you think that there is a point where MCs should put the mic down? When we come forward, we will be chatting it up with our guest, Drew Greer. We're also going to get into Nene Leakes and what she had to say about Kim Kardashian. And we're going to throw that question at our guest because it surrounds branding. All that and more, you're checking out RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Infusing a sense of fun and entertainment in every episode. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
Have you heard about Lendistry? Lendistry is a national Black-led small business lender that is headquartered right here in LA. Once you've started your business, Lendistry provides flexible financing options starting at $50,000 to help you access the affordable capital needed to grow. Visit lendistry.com/KBLA to learn more.
I'm Dominique DePrima. We can all fall into the trap of mindlessly spending sometimes. I know I do it. But one tip for staying on track is when you have an impromptu purchase that comes up, try making a habit of taking a quick look at your bank account balance before you buy it. It's not just about seeing how much you have in your checking account. Just looking at your account might put the urge to make that impulse purchase into perspective and help you make better choices that'll benefit you for the long term. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles, with an auto warranty about to expire, or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost, month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-381-8528 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-381-8528. That's 800-381-8528. What do you have to lose? Call 800-381-8528. Again, 800-381-8528.
KBLA Talk 1580 stands for Unity and Healing. African Focus Incorporated is a nonprofit organization based in California that focuses on the growth and well-being of Africans all around the world. Their mission is to promote the well-being of people of African descent through knowledge and appreciation of one another by building a bridge of love and understanding. African Focus Incorporated strives for cultural, educational, and economic growth. They're the organization behind the African Family Induction Ceremony, African Goodwill Awards, African Focus Trailblazer Tours, African Dance Competition, and Showcase Los Angeles, Family Day, Good News Windows Microfinance Project, and more. To volunteer, travel with African Focus, or to attend one of their community building events, please call 310-676-7730. That's 310-676-7300. Or visit AfricanFocus.org. This is a diaspora-wide community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, keeping you informed, entertained, and always ahead of the curve. This is RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, it's Jill Munroe. You are locked in with RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. And before we came forward, I mentioned that we have a guest this evening. So joining me tonight is a man named Drew Greer. So Drew and I have known each other for a very long time. We worked together at Nike on some amazing campaigns, some of them involving your favorite, including the late, great Kobe Bryant. Lots of Los Angeles legends. Going to get into that we dealt with. But Drew is an Ohio State University football graduate.
Ohio U.
Ohio U. Okay, let me not mess that up.
Keep that Athens.
Got to keep it separate, keep it correct. I did not mention that you are a Compton native. That's important.
Yes, Compton, Linwood.
Compton, Linwood in the house originally.
Yes.
You got your master's in sports administration, and your BS is in environmental health.
Right.
But you got your master's in sports and administration.
From the renowned Ohio University. But yes.
Absolutely. Got to keep that in.
Yes.
And I think you did something else with Ohio State University?
With Ohio U. I just was a football player there. Went to grad school
Just
there.
a little football player, just a little thing.
All
like
MAC.
That.
You got to say that. All MAC sounds better than all Big Ten. All MAC just sounds like it applies after your football career. It still has impact and from a verbiage sort of standpoint. But yeah, first male to graduate from college in my family. But football was my passion and kind of drove a lot of this.
So we're just going to get right to it because we've already started talking. Right. Drew Greer is in the building. Like I said, he worked for Nike, Under Armour, a bunch of other brands. You are probably owing a debt of thanks if you enjoy sneakers, if you enjoy sneaker collaborations with established brand, established artists. You need to thank him because he is the person who kicked that off at Nike. And so we're going to talk about all of that, but before we get into that, I want to get into one of my stories for the night, which is surrounding Nene Leakes. Nene Leakes is a former star of The Real Housewives of Atlanta, and she's been off of the show for a few seasons. And she's been doing these interviews with Carlos King, the former producer of the show, and Nene has been sharing her opinions of the current cast, the past, certain things that have happened. So in this interview, Nene shared that in her opinion, the powers that be held her back, and that she should be a bigger brand, a bigger deal than Kim Kardashian. She said that her show came out first. It didn't. Keeping Up with the Kardashians came out first, but we'll let Nene rock. And that they were in tandem through a lot of appearances and situations, but that they didn't want to let her shine. So we're going to hear Nene in her own words. And then I want to have a little talk about branding, because I think that this is an appropriate topic for you, about personal brands and development and that nature. So
love it.
You think you should be bigger than Kim Kardashian?
Absolutely. If not bigger, right there with her. I feel like they pushed Kim and they didn't push me. Kim came on after me, and they opened up every door and every opportunity for her, even putting us together at times and making her, you know, much more bigger than me. She had North, obviously. I was at North baby shower with her and Kanye, but they pushed Kim to the front and pushed me to the back. And I don't think that was by chance. I think that was the way they wanted it to be. We were together because I was Nene and I came out before her, and it just kind of looked good for us to be together. That's how I feel. Mm-hmm. Chris had a talk show. I co-host with Chris on the talk show. I just think that they made her more successful, and she was able to get opportunities and walk through doors that they just did not want me to walk through. She did Shoe Dazzle, I did Shoe Dazzle around the same time, and they just pushed her stuff forward, and they were always giving opportunities. And one other thing is that whenever we had businesses, it felt like we couldn't really show them that much on our show, but on their show, all they do is talk about their businesses, and all they do is, you know, talk about lunch and their makeup lines or their clothing lines or their whatever they're doing. And I don't feel like we were able to do that as much. So I just wasn't given the opportunities that she was giving.
So those are Nene's comments. I find it interesting and a tad, I think Nene's a bit confused about things, but I also think that she doesn't have an understanding of a brand and what it takes to support a brand, even now. Because if you look at the Kardashians and when they launched, Kim had Chris. Kim had Chris behind her as a machine. Chris had already set her sights on certain aspects of direct-to-consumer products through Bruce. He was a speaker. She had marketed all that, so she knew how to set it up. Also, when you think about the demographics that they were tapping into, Kim was younger. She's going to touch younger women in a different way. I don't know that at that time, the bases that they were tapping, there are some women that might have wanted to emulate Nene's looks or her style, but I think more were in line with Kim. She was dating more of the type of guys they probably were more interested in. So as a brand arsonist, as someone who knows how to build brands from the inside out and look at the culture surrounding it and make sure it's authentic, what do you think it takes to, especially in this era, put together a top tier brand?
Well, I mean, from a brand sort of perspective, I look at it as there's making juice and there's making sauce. And from sauce standpoint is really building a brand. Me personally, even though it's extended longer, I look at the Kardashians as juice. It's temporary. It's pushed. It's not, to me personally, as much substance there. But because of the internet, because of social media, because of the dynamics and what they built as a brand, as a family, with Bruce, which really starting with Bruce and then working their way out. I mean, for her to do that comparison, their family brand is so much bigger than her. That's going to get encompassed in itself as well. But to me, it's really about storytelling and, you know, people connecting with the brand and getting and then for me, what I gravitate to, again, everybody's different, but having purpose and, you know, something that's really after something. I live empty with a lot of the reality stuff and what goes on there with them because it's
not your thing.
It's not my thing, but I understand how it works and it taps into. But to me, it's still temporary. I don't think in 30 years from now we'll be talking about the Kardashians.
Really?
Personally.
We've been talking about them for like 15.
True.
So we're halfway there, much longer than anyone would have expected.
But just like a child star, I think they can go away.
I mean, I agree with that. But the reason why I asked you that question and I framed it as such is I think about, so one of the hallmarks of your career at Nike was being here in the LA market, working on basketball, and establishing Kobe's personal brand within that. When you were at Nike, Kobe made the shift from Adidas to Nike, right. And it was at a very controversial time in his career. And so when Kobe first signed with Nike, obviously that was when the rape and sexual assault allegations came about. And so right away, immediately, we couldn't position him. We couldn't.
All-Star Weekend, remember that?
We couldn't do anything with him technically because of what was going on legally.
Right.
But we still had to figure out a way to utilize Kobe Bryant. Right. And what you guys came up with was through community. And it is something that we had seen it before in players like Magic Johnson and what he did in LA. But what the foundation that was laid out with Kobe here in LA was something that LA hadn't seen in a while, and it was grown about in a different way. So I want you to talk a little bit about that time period and how you used the city of LA to help build him up as a brand.
So, I mean, it was challenging. It was exciting. We signed Kobe. And, you know, we all-star game in LA, like things seemed like they were going to be perfect. And then the situation sort of came up and it really pushed off of us doing anything with him. I was personally calling Mark Parker, the president, to try to get on. It's like, you know, calm your horses. But it was an exciting time because we had a signature athlete. But the thought process was, and in some ways I think it kind of helped Kobe, is we wanted to attack the hood. We wanted to go into urban environments in LA because we felt they had the most empathy as related to him and would accept him back. And I think in a lot of ways, not that we wanted Kobe to get in the situation he in, that ended up propelling his brand the right way because it was built, you know, in community, in Latino and black, brown and black neighborhood, and then worked its way out. Where internally at Nike, early positioning, even my direct boss, first thing they would think with Kobe was pop. So
do you remember we were sitting in a meeting, right? Because Tracy McGrady was also a sneaker free agent that same summer.
Right.
They both were. And there were talks that neither, you know, could end up at Nike. And so we had a meeting and we listed out what traits and things that we thought that we could connect to each athlete. And one of the things that came up was a question of who we thought would be more likely to end up in a complicated situation and something unmentionable. That was one of the things that we threw on the board. And unanimously, we pretty much all said if we have to make a choice of these two, you know, we picked Tracy.
Right.
And then literally about 3 weeks later, all of this happened. So when you're working through a crisis situation, building a brand, but you wanted to connect it to community, how did you make sure that it was authentic and organic?
The biggest challenge, particularly with Kobe, it's like he lived in Newport. He had no connection to the hood. So knowing LA, being from LA myself, knowing those hotbeds on the east side as well as within the heart of the sort of community, have it be Fox Hills Mall, have it be Harold and Bells, or have it be Westchester basketball game. We knew those hotspots that would maximize the impact, and he developed some natural relationships outside of that he didn't have. But it's being true to those culture. I mean, I think that's the problem with a lot of corporations is people in place that know the logistics, but they don't know the cultural side. It's one of the things I wanted to share here. I think in general, corporations undervalue the impact of culture and what it has on their business.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? What do you mean that they undervalue it? Do you mean they just use it as a prong or a tent pole to get them through the next sales cycle? Or do you mean that they don't value anything outside of their established culture?
I say all the way around. I'd say starting like now, perfect example of this, and we'll see in a couple of weeks here is, 50 years of hip hop. How are they really going to salute a business that has propelled not only the record industry, but also, sneaker and athletic, like the fashion, so many things sort of outside of those dynamics. But corporations just kind of throw it under the rug, so to speak, that it doesn't have great value. It isn't like accounting or any of the others, but as it relates to impact business, it has that sort of kind of how digital wasn't supported, but digital originally sort of graduated up. The impact that culture, particularly hip-hop, has had on businesses, and for them not to be celebrated, cherished, put on a pedestal, as we go into this 50th anniversary, is a direct reflection of that, but also from an employee standpoint. To me, a lot of ways, we're expats or international people coming to work, in that we operate within this lily setting, but then connect to culture, which where the business is.
So you bring up hip hop, and one of your early projects, one of your sort of stalemates, I guess, at Nike, was bringing Rockefeller and Nike together, also Wu-Tang. So can you walk me a little bit through that process and what that was like being so early as far as the branding and that brand marriage or collaboration of hip hop with a sportswear brand?
So I'm at this incredible brand Nike, and I'm in their archives and being able to revisit these products that they weren't maximized, and looking for opportunities to storytell, and to be able to storytell, connect with the consumer. I'm trying to find ways to take it to the next level. I'm excited. I got this opportunity. How do I do it right? And actually was working with New York retailers. It isn't something I solicited on my own, but they had some of the relationships. In fact, the Wu-Tang actually happened, a connection I had at a record label, but the thought process was, how do I sell more dunks? We're coming out with an IL colorway, Wu-Tang colors, the B, but it really was an extension of storytelling and trying to get after connecting with the culture. And that's just how I am, just digging in deeper. It was more than a 9 to 5, and that's why I go back to the culture piece. They don't value that we have the ability to operate inside, but then we have this cultural sensitivity, presence, instincts that then impact the business, but it's not rewarded or recognized for the impact that it has.
So when we come forward, we'll have more with Drew Greer and his thoughts and approaches to brands. We're going to talk to you about a question that Steven Jackson brought up as it relates to the big three and culture. I think it's an important topic that we can get into. We're also going to get into what you're working on now and where those things are taking you, because it involves NIL and teaching and a bunch of other things that are really sort of bubbling over right now as far as the culture. Coming up, we'll have news and sports. You are checking out RSVP with Jill Munroe here live on KBLA Talk 1580.
Find a spot to get you hot. Let me do
RSVP with Jill Munroe is your go-to show for staying in the know. More engaging conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Esther Dillard, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Vice President Kamala Harris is rejecting the Florida governor's invitation to discuss the state's new African American history standards.
They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, in an attempt to divide and distract
our nation.
While speaking in Orlando, Harris said she will not debate the fact that there were no redeeming qualities of slavery. Governor Ron DeSantis has argued the curriculum has been misinterpreted. Meantime, former President Donald Trump has been indicted for election interference that culminated with the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot. Prosecutors say his efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election contributed to the riot. Trump is expected to be arraigned in the case on Thursday. And that's the latest. I'm Esther Dillard from the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Don't let a traffic accident ruin your day. Visit fixautousa.com to find the nearest Fix Auto location. Their highly trained and certified technicians will have you back on the road in no time. You have a choice on who fixes your vehicle. Tell your insurance agent that you want to go to Fix Auto.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcasts of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black. Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like Sprinklers in the Rain and Leaky Faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for voting rights. When We All Vote is a leading national nonpartisan initiative on a mission to change the culture around voting and to increase participation in each and every election by helping to close the race and age gap. Created by Michelle Obama, When We All Vote brings together individuals, institutions, brands, and organizations to register new voters across the country and advance civic education for the entire family and voters of every age to build an informed and engaged electorate for today and generations to come. When We All Vote empowers their supporters and volunteers to take action through voting, advocating for their rights, and holding their elected officials accountable. Please visit whenweallvote.org to stand up for your rights, voting rights. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
AutoZone is more than a parts store. It's where we help you solve problems like, sorry I'm late, my battery died. And
I need a jump again.
At America's #1 battery destination, you can find the right battery at the right price with options starting at only $89.99. And we offer free battery testing and charging whenever you need it. Get the parts and help you need to get the job done right at AutoZone.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Carson, get back! Hey, I am Jasmine Carson, LSU Women's Basketball National Champion. I had to up my game, and this time I upped my intimate grooming routine too. Venus for Pubic Hair and Skin is the only razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area. Featuring a razor with a patented irritation defense bar and a skincare regimen that is dermatologist tested, Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Visit GilletteVenus.com to learn more about the full regimen of products.
KBLA Talk 1580. Curating the most compelling stories and delivering them straight to your ears. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
Russian always had the fly braids with the beads. They were like,
I just got to make sure it's her and not Will.
You funny, Men in Black.
I can't get too into it till I know it.
Listen, but I don't know why you were acting like the Men in Black sample wasn't a bop with Coco on the hook. Here come Men in Black. Either one will do. Either one will do.
Compton's
for me.
a little rougher than Philly, you know what I mean?
Listen.
Compton's a little rougher than Philly, you know what I mean? I can't.
Do.
And I was born in Trenton, which is adjacent city.
Look.
We bubbly,
We don't want to hear about all of that.
A little bubbly, you know what I mean?
We're going to stick it.
He wouldn't have hit me.
Keep it West Coast.
He wouldn't have hit me.
Listen.
It wouldn't have happened.
Listen.
It wouldn't have to. Tell him, CBT, Linwood, we ain't having it.
Listen.
Why everybody from Compton always got to be banging on everybody?
Do you know what I'm saying? They just got to come through.
I got a master's degree. We just all got it in us. You know, we're a little
intelligent,
edgy, little easty.
Little easty.
We all got a little
edgy,
easty, little east side.
Little side of hoodlum
yeah.
in you. So before we go into the next topic, I want to ask you, because you were a running back, right? And you see what's happening with running backs right now as far as the position being devalued in the NFL. The contracts are getting shorter, less money. What are your thoughts behind that?
The running back's a side chick right now. They're not the main chick. It's just how it works. To me, if I played the position and I was close to this, I would operate and learn the receiver position at a premium level so that I had duality of being able to run the ball and multi-purpose. I think the game's going to go where it's going to be positionless like basketball.
Oh, so you think football is coming down to that? That
Yeah, I
it'll
think
just be the quarterback.
and then you got to be able to play multiple positions and do multiple things seamlessly. You can't catch good for a running back. You need to be able to catch.
Okay.
And I think it's going to become seamless and yeah.
So, well, in thinking of something like that, right, because you still have the aspect of, you know, the violence, the CTE, the things with the helmet, do you think the NFL will be able to retain its crown as the top live sport over the next 10 to 15 years?
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna be an issue. I think what they're gonna have problems is the global expansion and seeing where it is, because the game just doesn't apply everywhere. But just with their schedule, fantasy football, video games, and all of that, it plays into the popularity. So I think they'll be fine. I think where they're gonna have issues is somebody ever dies on the field.
Okay.
And I think that's what they're trying to prevent. I think that, and that's why the game changed, because the game used to be primarily running. Passing entered in earlier on because of deaths and things going on because of the violence, and then they changed the strategy. People are complaining now, but with the helmets and the adjustments to the rules, that the strategy's always been evolving. Because if that's the case, none of them cats would have teeth or anything, and it'd still be leather helmets and da-da-da-da-da.
Okay. So before we get into the next topic and the questions I have for you, I just want to, Kwamel, am I jacking it up, Andy? You know, I've got Kwamel, okay, says that the Men in Black song's use of Patrice Rushen didn't retain the slap that her song had. So
yes,
they're siding with you. I maintain that she gave it the extra oomph, so it's not too bad. I snapped my fingers.
I mean, Will has his moments. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he had a couple of cuts, but then it just went bubblegum left. But just like him and Cube and the rest of the guys have transformed off of just the mic and getting into film and other things, I am thoroughly impressed.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Cube, because we're going to talk a little bit about the big three. Steven Jackson and Ice Cube both feel that the NBA is blocking the big three. They feel that they should be more supportive of them because it is home to a lot of former NBA athletes,
Right.
and though they are a competitor of sorts, they feel that there is a way that they could be more supportive. Cube also has come out and said that he's being blocked financially because of investments and TV deals by the NBA. He feels that they took some of his concepts that he established with the Big Three, and that the NBA has utilized them in the All-Star game and some of the things that they have developed with some of the rule changes. Do you think that the way that they're going about it, talking about, let me get Steven Jackson's exact quote, because Steven Jackson says that he is the face of the biggest civil rights movement ever, speaking of the George Floyd incident, because he was friends with George Floyd, and that this is the only profession, that the Big Three is the only black-owned professional league, and we need to come out and support it. I've been with this since year one, and he just wants to see him win. He said there's no reason for the NBA not to support it. He said being the face of the biggest civil rights movement, playing in the NBA, they didn't reach out to him for the Black Lives Matter movement, for the social injustice or equality. And I suspect that Steven has a branding problem. I think that sometimes, I know that we are in a be authentic and keep it real, but I also think that people don't understand when they don't match, and how do you feel what you're offering is going to push them forward? How does it benefit them? Because I feel like with everything has to be a mutually beneficial positioning, right?
You don't want favors. I don't want favors.
Exactly.
Because favors go away versus it being rewarded.
Mutually beneficial.
So I think, first of all, Cube, and all is love. Business is ruthless. But B, I like that Steven is supporting him and coming from that, because typically you don't have that when you have fights. I've had many fights and you don't have that sort of support that's sort of going on. But to be honest with you, I have not, and it gives you a reflection what's going on. I really haven't taken a look at the product at sort of the next level. I see the NBA being protective with 3-on-3 going in the Olympics. Not that the Olympics means much these days, but with the 3-on-3 going in the Olympics, they just don't want to feed him, give him too much flame, that if they decide to really make a better effort from a 3-on-3 sort of standpoint, they're trying to unfinish stuff or trying to, being forced to sort of partner with them.
So what is something, because you have worked as far as branding in various capacities, from strategy to execution, long-term creation, building things out of there, what is something that is an industry standard that's common to you but would be surprising to the general public?
To me, it goes back to the culture. I mean, what do you mean for the general public? Go back.
Just, I'm someone, and all I know about Nike is I go buy them in the store, and it's just do it. What is something that is an industry standard as far as brand marketing? Or
I don't really think there's any standards, but I think people just think the magic just happens, and there's so many things. Like, why did Brand Jordan work? Unique player. Finally the forward guard position getting more notoriety than the center position, the big man. Athletic moments, great, winning championships, innovative product, great storytelling. There's like one thing. Like, you look at the signature model, Mike's the only one that's really worked consistently. Now Kobe's is starting to creep up, but during his heyday, he didn't even really sort of sell. But it takes all of that as part of the magic to make, from the colorway to the design to the storytelling to the launch to the part. There's so many dynamics, and what we talk about is putting the right product in the right place at the right time in the right amount, where people just think things sort of happen. If you put too much out, the super cool kid doesn't want it. You don't put enough out, people are left chasing. So you just have to have a strategy against your products, but it's more than just the athlete themselves.
When we come forward, I'm going to get into some more branding questions with Drew, set up some scenarios. I have something else that I want to ask you about. We're going to talk a little bit about what you're doing now with NIL and some other things. And, of course, we're going to get into more of these trending topics and headlines. You are checking out RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Trending topics and the hottest happenings. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Chase Ink Business Premier Card is made for people who make things happen, like me. I'm Sam, founder and CEO of Manifest, a product design company that makes everyday products design smarter. I get 2.5% cash back on purchases of $5,000 or more, plus unlimited 2% cash back on all other purchases, which helps us make more smart ideas into a brilliant reality.
The Ink Business Premier Card. Learn more at chase.com/business premier. Chase for business. Make more of what's yours. Real business owner compensated for their participation. Account subject to credit approval. Restrictions and limitations apply. Cards are issued by JP Morgan Chase Bank. Any member FDIC.
Carson, get back!
Hey, I am Jasmine Carson, LSU Women's Basketball National Champion. I had to up my game, and it's time I up my intimate grooming routine too. Venus for Pubic Hair and Skin is the only razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area. Featuring a razor with a patented irritation defense bar and a skincare regimen that is dermatologist tested, Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Visit GilletteVenus.com to learn more about the full regimen of products.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action is the youth component of the impactful CBO, known as the Community Coalition. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action has chapters at almost every South LA high school. Say Yeah, as they are popularly known, is located at 80th and Vermont, but serves young people all over South LA. Under the COCO umbrella, they train youth organizers, help underserved scholars prepare for college, and work with students to help them gain admission to top universities. South Central Youth Empowered Through Action fosters teen activism, where young people have led campaigns moving tens of millions of dollars to South LA schools and forcing officials to make AP classes available to students in under-resourced institutions. SCES scholars have taken part in the March on Washington, been published in major news outlets, and been elected to city council. Long before she was mayor, Karen Bass started the program when she founded the Community Coalition. To donate, volunteer, or enroll a student in South Central Youth Empowered Through Action, please visit cocsouthla.org. cocsouthla.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more captivating conversation on RSVP with Jill Munroe.
You are locked in with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580. We are talking with Drew Greer, brand arsonist, founder of the storytelling agency Brand I Am, an NIL specialist, keynote speaker, and writer. So talk to me about Brand I Am and why storytelling is so important, especially where we are right now as far as
just the digital. I mean, storytelling's always been, extremely important. We didn't really label it that way or put it in a category, but that was really engaging. So, like, I personally have a love for documentaries and real stories sort of going on. But with the digital platforms and all these different touch points and, people seeking sort of, it's either authentic, great piece, I want to engage and buy into that, or it's a commodity. It's one or the other. And the consumer having so much more control now, that storytelling could be the difference in engaging with the consumer for a lifetime journey where they're part of the brand and what you're about. Or, it's kind of, our company looks at it from a juice and sauce. Juice is temporary, it comes and goes. It's like lemonade, where sauce is sticky and it sticks and has purpose and those dynamics. And I just think storytelling gives you the opportunity to do that, and it validates you. You build trust, you build engagement, all those sort of dynamics. And you can do it at every touch point. It could be in the packaging, it could be in a commercial, it could be on the site, and people cross-check to see where you are. They want to make sure that you're real.
Who's a person or a brand you think could use a makeover or a rebranding, so to speak, right now? Well, just give me one or two and tell me a little bit about what you would do.
We could be here all day. Why don't you give me a brand?
Let's
you
see.
think, and I'll give you my perspective versus it coming from me, because I'm a little just.
Let's see. I want to. James Harden.
He's clearly just come off like from a sort of selfish standpoint. As a player, just as an athlete. As an athlete, he needs to get in shape. That's just my perspective, just from a leaning standpoint. But to me, I would have gone back to Houston or may have drive that back, because it seems like now all the teams he with, there's no loyalty, and he's just chasing the check, and we know how that sort of worked out. You see, even though Shaq's done well, imagine what he could have done if he'd stayed a Laker and partnered with better brands versus kind of jumping all over. You see a bunch of little snowballs versus one big snowball, and that's the advantage Mike has had. The partnership primarily, most of his career was Chicago, but Nike and that sort of deal with his level of consistency versus you look at others that sort of jump around. That's the first thing I would look at. But if you look at the decisions he's made all the way around, it's just been tough. Even from an Adi partnering with them, they don't do much sort of storytelling. But he's been with 4 or 5 teams, and he's trying to get out, of sort of the team now. It's too late.
It's too late? You think so? Okay. What about Ja Morant?
I wrote a plan already on Ja, so you're probably like I had a whole concept called Point Ja, because I got close to being able to present a concept to him. I think the moves they made by bringing in veteran leadership was a start. I think personally he need to get out of Memphis, because Memphis is just a wild town to keep it 100. And I think his talents are bigger than from a Memphis. I think Tracy suffered from the same thing, McGrady being in Orlando. So first thing with him, I'd be relocating. Other thing, his dad seems like he's a little bit too much in the front row, and there needs to be a little bit sort of separation as it relates to those sort of dynamics. But what I do like is primarily they keep it on the court, unlike the Balls that got to talking about sort of other things versus the Ball brothers, not Balls, but Ball brothers.
Pause. But no, I'm just playing with the pause thing. I mean, I feel the same way about, I had this conversation recently about LeVar Ball and where I feel like he went wrong. I feel that because he didn't bring someone in with them that understood the shoe business, he really fumbled that aspect, because they had a lane, they had people that were excited for that independent thing. They didn't do any wear testing. They didn't deliver on their products.
But even they kept, he was discussing how much the shoe costs versus the technology.
Right.
Versus the style of player this kid. But there's just things you set up that, that's part of the storytelling. Engage. Talk about the technology. Talk about the inspiration of the shoe. Talk about the style of player. These sort of dynamics, which then engage people on this different points that may trigger different consumers. But if you're just talking about yourself and how dope you are, you can't even deliver. I mean, it just, the jokes are coming, and then he created such anticipation for his son. Everybody, that's why he's part of the reason he's hurt, is he's wearing BS shoes, as well as soon as he came to town, everybody was gearing up to, from Beverly on to give at him because of all these checks that his dad is, put him in position to have to cash.
So kind of along those lines, we see that media is changing quite a bit, especially as it relates to sports, right? Do you think that the influx of athletes and media via podcasts and these different levels, live streams, do you think that it is hurting the major media markets up top? And do you think that these brands that are being established sort of on this micro level are sustainable?
I guess the best example I use, it's like, to me, Vegas is dated. And Vegas is dated because if I still pull out my cell phone while I'm in Vegas, Vegas isn't doing what it needs to do. And that's the same thing I look at from a media sort of standpoint. It's these smaller guys are just going to make these other guys better, and that's what's needed. Like, elevate their game, because you are getting better commentators. That's hiring more, whatever that angle is. I don't know what that chemistry is, but I think it's making. I mean, you've just seen it recently at ESPN. They're going younger. They're looking for hybrid, looking for more personalities versus just a GMC. Are they really going younger though? Because to me, Mark Jackson, those sort of no style. just straight basketball guys. He's burly now, not in shape, not fly. What was his coach's name? I'm blanking out.
Jeff Van Gundy?
Jeff Van Gundy. You know what I mean? Just stale, no stuff. Like, that's not going to work today. I can go to a textbook. I can go to Wikipedia and get that. I need somebody that understands the culture, understands the game.
Gilbert Arenas said the same thing. He said that that's why, and Kenyon Martin, they were talking about it on Gil's Arena. They said that they're types that are more authentic, are real. He gave the example, why are they wearing suits to cover a game? He was like, I don't want to hear that because it makes them look more professional. It doesn't match with the culture. It's not on point at this point.
But I was surprised that Jalen got let go.
I'm not.
Why is that?
I think that Jalen has run his time there. I think that Jalen was paid pretty highly, and I think Jalen wanted to shake and move in some ways that may not have been, still available to him at ESPN. And then if you want to go on the rumors side, maybe possibly, his ex-wife and Stephen A are good friends. Stephen A is the top dog there. Might be some personal things. Andy, I think you had a comment.
First off, there's a couple actual announcers that I think have the swag that you might, be looking for. I don't know if you're familiar with Brian Custer. He does a lot of boxing.
Okay. No.
And I want to say his name is something Hill. He does a lot of games with Doris Burke. I want to say Mark Hill. I could be wrong. But anyways, those are two individuals. They use a lot of, vernacular that the youngster use currently. And, those are the two individuals. I forgot what else I was going to say.
Also, it's a big female movement, especially with the sisters and Rooks, and it seems like they're really laying the runway for this black females. It's almost like they're diversity, inclusion directors.
Yeah,
there's a new movement sort of coming. I don't think it's a bad thing. I just find it's interesting and awkward in some of the interviews, especially when they're extremely attractive and the players are trying to contain themselves.
What do you mean? You think it feels forced, like Taylor Rooks or those type of?
Yeah, I think.
I think there's always been attractive women on the sideline.
She's dope. I think she does a good job, but I just think it's sort of awkward when she's one-on-one with some of the players. You saw the Chris Paul interview. Cut it out.
I think there's always that dynamic that's going to take place there. I think that there's always going to be that aspect of it, because if you go with two, which they have, the less conventional beauties, shall we say, then they're going to take another type of heat. So I think it's going to be something, no matter which way you size that one up. Andy?
I also think, I remember what I was going to say. They're trying to get rid of wokeness.
Yeah.
So if you think about the personalities like Jalen Rose, Mark Jackson, and Jeff Van Gundy, they kept it too real a lot of the times.
That's fair.
And considering, ESPN is owned by Disney, which is in Florida, Ron DeSantis, I think there's a lot of trickle down going on there.
Yeah, but Stephen A ain't like. Don't even get me started on home. Don't even I don't like bashing his brothers, the rest of it, but just from an athlete standpoint, and the point, it's kind of comical, just his point of view and his shifts and his own. But I guess it's working for him. But if you ask about what's wrong with ESPN and competing against, some of the other entities that are out there,
embrace
that's
debate.
A perfect example is Stephen A is leading the charge and pulling the strings.
Well, when we come forward, we'll have more with Drew Greer. We will also get into our stories for the second hour. News and sports is coming up next. You're listening to RSVP with Jill Munroe here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Crazy about you. Was it your charm or your passion?
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Esther Dillard, and here's the latest from